in today's video we're going to talk hanging baskets, how to get from this empty hanging basket to this basket full of flowers ready to flower over the summer period. So I'll be providing you with a number of hints and tips of how to prepare and plant your hanging baskets, and I'll be sharing some of my favourite hanging basket flowers with you during the course of the video. Now, hanging baskets come in all shapes and sizes. The most common type is this circular hanging basket here. This is roughly a 14-inch diameter hanging basket, but you can get them much larger. It really depends upon how big you want your hanging basket to be, and of course how many flowers you have available, because the larger the hanging basket, the more flowers you tend to put in them. This particular hanging basket is made of interwoven twigs, and it has a liner inside it. Now this liner is plastic, and that came with the hanging basket when I bought it. It wouldn't be my preferred liner, but I am going to use it because it's there. What I've done with this is I've pierced holes in the plastic for drainage, and the reason you do that is because if you get long periods of rain and the basket was to completely fill up with water and it had nowhere to go, it could end up flooding the basket and end up rotting some of the plants. So drainage is really important, as we'll see later, as is watering as well. Other types of liners are things like sphagnum moss, which is ideal, which you literally place in loose moss over the surface and then put your compost in top. You can get recycled cardboard, you could even use newspaper. It doesn't really matter as long as there is some form of a lining in there in your basket. So firstly, choose your basket and make sure you've got a decent liner inside, and then we can start thinking about filling it and putting our plants in. Now, before we start to put our plants in, clearly we've got to fill it with compost, and multi-purpose compost is absolutely fine. You don't need to buy any specialist compost for a hanging basket. Even though you might look around your garden centres and your DIY stores and you might see compost specifically for hanging baskets or pots, they don't really do anything different to what multi-purpose compost will do. So save yourself a bit of money and just use multi-purpose compost. And the secret to make a hanging basket last and flower for a long time is in the watering. And that's something we will need to do once we've got the plants in on a regular basis, because the tendency will be, with the amount of plants in here and the amount of roots competing for the moisture and for the nutrients, then if it's not watered regularly, then clearly the plants are going to struggle to flower and to survive. So watering is the key, but the compost itself, multi-purpose, is absolutely fine. So what I'm going to do is put a couple of handfuls of multi-purpose compost into my hanging basket. Now, for drainage purposes, you can add things like vermiculite, which again is a cost, and you don't really need to do that unless you've got some available. Or I have seen other people who have cut up an old sponge into small little bits and put it into there and mixed it into the compost, and that will help when they water for moisture retention. But I'm not going to do that because this multi-purpose compost I have is free draining, and as long as I water my hanging baskets on a regular basis, they'll be absolutely fine. Now, the level of the compost before I put the plants in is just below the surface of the edge of the hanging basket. Never fill it right to the top, because remember, you've got to leave a bit of room for your plants as well. So after we've completed filling our hanging basket, the next thing to do is put our plants in. Now, the beauty of planting a hanging basket, it's a completely blank canvas. You can put in there whatever you want. Most people will use flowers, and that's what I do, but there's no reason why you can't grow things like strawberries or herbs or other types of vegetables in a hanging basket, particularly if you're limited on space. But I tend to focus my hanging baskets on flowers, and the variety of flowers I have, I grow so many different varieties of flowers and I can mix and match them. Now, clearly, if you've got the capacity and the ability to grow from seed, that has to be your preferred choice, because you can grow whatever you want, whatever varieties you want, whatever colours you want, and also it works out a lot cheaper. Anybody who's been to a garden centre to purchase bedding plants will know that it can be expensive. I mean, you can get your bargains, fair enough, but generally, if you want a lot of plants, they can be expensive. So some of the plants I'll be putting in my hanging baskets, and these are all grown from seed, are petunias. They're a variety called Multiflora F2. They're a mixed variety of reds and whites and purples, really beautiful petunias. And petunias are a really popular hanging basket flower. I'll also be planting some lobelia. These are a variety called Sapphire Pendula, and they're a deep purple colour, and they will trail down, so they're fantastic as well. Another flower I'll be putting in my hanging baskets is Elysium. These are a variety called white carpet, and these will be a trailing flower as well. So these will go on the edge and trail down. Absolutely fantastic. Again, all grown from seed. I also have some African marigolds, which will be centre flowers in the hanging basket. These are a little bit behind, but they'll catch up. So they'll be in the hanging baskets in a few weeks' time. So really, the choice of what you plant is really a personal preference, and there's so much choice and availability. It will depend on what flowers you like, what colours you want, and all these types of things. And I'd really be interested to know what your favourite hanging basket flowers are. I'm sure there's some popular ones out there that we all know and love, but do you grow anything that's maybe slightly different than the normal? Then if you do, then just pop a comment below and let us know. It'll be really interesting to see what you grow. Maybe give me some ideas for flowers that I might think about growing in my hanging baskets in the future. So now let's get on to the fun bit and plant a basket up. Now there are different ways to do this, but when you're planting your flowers up, think about the layout of what you want and where you want it. A lot of people will start off with a central plant. Now this for me is going to be petunias, because I just love petunias. It's going to be primarily petunias in this basket. So I've got a lovely root system there on my petunia. Again, this was grown from seed. I'm going to pop that in the middle just by clawing out a little bit of the compost to the side, popping it in, and then putting the compost back around it, and then firming it in. So that's that. Now when we've finished, if we need to, we can top this up with more compost, which I will do at the end. So straight away now we have a central flower, and now we can start to work around that. So what I do next is I will do my trailing flowers next. I usually work on a north, south, east, west, or if you're looking at a clock, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So putting the trailing flowers into the hanging basket. So for this hanging basket, I'm going to use 2 Elysium plants. One of them I'm going to put at 12 o'clock, put it right in there. And the other one I'll put at 6 o'clock. Just firm them right in. And then I'm going to put my 2 lobelia plants in at 3 o'clock over this side and 9 o'clock over this side. Now these plants are all at a stage where they will continue to grow. They're clearly not mature plants. Now I have seen people planting hanging baskets up with plants that are already flowering. I find personally that I get a longer growing season if I put them in at this stage and then leave them to grow on their own. Then what I'll do now, in between the gaps of where I've put the Elysium and the lobelia at each of the 4 angles, I'm going to put more petunias in, and that will be enough for this basket. Now that's enough in that basket. Now in the middle I could have used plants such as geraniums or marigolds. I may even, for the plants on the edges, could have used trailing fuchsias or other plants, but this is what I've decided to plant this particular basket up in here. And as you can see in there now, I've got 5 petunias, 2 lobelias and 2 Elysium. So when that starts to establish and grow, the Elysium and the lobelia will cascade over the edge, and these petunias are going to produce a mass of wonderful, colourful variation in flowers. All I need to do now is give that a bit of a water just to bed all the plants in. So there you have the hanging basket now ready. I'm going to leave that for maybe a day or 2 inside my unheated poly house, just to give the plants a little bit of protection, a little bit of warmth, just to encourage them to start growing. But that'll be soon ready to go on display in my garden outside my house. Now when you do water your hanging baskets, make sure you take your top or your rows off the end of your hanging basket and water right in to the base of the plants, not over the leaves. And that'll ensure that your compost gets a good level of moisture. If you leave your rows on your watering can and then try and water over the leaves, often because of the amount of foliage in the hanging basket, the water can get dispersed over the sides and not get to the compost. So always take the top off your watering can and make sure you water directly into the compost. Now in terms of care and maintenance, it's really important that the hanging basket compost is moist at all times. And this is one of the biggest reasons why hanging baskets fail, because people don't realise or forget to water them. Now here's the completed hanging basket that we've just made up. Already it looks vibrant and healthy, just needs maybe a week just for the plants to establish. And then when we get a bit of sunshine, they'll all start to bloom and flower. So that should give me a good range of flowers and colours for a long time over the summer period. Now 1 or 2 of the other hanging baskets that I've already completed have got nasturtiums in them, They're quite limited because they've not grown as well as I thought they would this year. So I've got about half a dozen, which is fantastic. And I do like nasturtiums because they really cascade down. So when they start to establish, they'll produce a range of many colours that can cascade many metres beyond the hanging basket. But as mentioned previously, the choice of flowers is really down to your own personal preference. So I hope you found that video useful and you've picked up 1 or 2 tips there of how you can make your own hanging baskets. I would encourage you, if possible, to grow your flowers from seeds rather than buy them as bedding plants. I know that's not possible for everybody. It's just that growing them from seed gives you much more choice and it's much more cost effective. Now I've already created nearly 10 hanging baskets, and if you were to purchase those from a garden centre as made of hanging baskets, that would be really expensive. So it's much more cost effective to do these for yourselves, and I hope this video has maybe motivated you or encouraged you to try and do your own hanging baskets. If you did like this video, don't forget to give it the thumbs up, and if you want to subscribe to the channel for future videos on how to sow and grow fruit and veg and 1 or 2 recipe ideas, don't forget to press the subscribe button, and I'll see you all on the next video.